The human face is one of the first objects we see. It triggers a powerful emotion. This stimulation of our subconscious by a visual image is something, as humans, we have been programmed to respond to for millions of years. My name is Jeremy Humphreys, and I'm a BBC-trained director of photography. I'm interested in a camera's tech spec, but just as important is how I use the tech spec to engage my viewer, trigger an emotion that stimulates their subconscious, an experience that they will remember weeks, months, years later. I want to show you how I achieve this engagement, how by using depth of field, contrast, colour and composition, I can create a mood, an emphasis and an emotion. These are the key tools I use day in and day out to emotionally engage my viewer and achieve what we are all trying to do, to tell a story. And here's the good news. You can achieve all of this on a small sensored camera. We are filming on the Sony HXR NX5 series of cameras, and we're filming in an old garage too. You can of course achieve an even shallower depth of field on a larger sensored camera, but just see with a little care what you can achieve with this, a 1.28-inch sensored camera. The whole point of a shallow depth of field is that it isolates. It channels the audience's attention to just one plane of interest that you have chosen. Our brains concentrate up to 80% more of our attention on what is in focus than on what isn't. So look at the background behind me at the moment. We have an f-stop of 5.6 and no NDs. We are going to introduce the neutral density filter. The picture gets darker. We open the iris and look at what happens to the background. Look now as we start to zoom in. The combination of a wide iris and an increasing focal length creates a shallow depth of field. I've used this method time and again to create isolation of my subject and to minimise any distracting background. The audience will concentrate on the object in focus. You can also focus pull from one plane to the other. This is a key device we use to lead the audience from one area of interest to another. Have you ever looked at a painting and seen how the artist uses the light? More often than not, they don't light flatly, but they use contrast. Why? Because contrast creates a mood. As an audience, we are intrigued by highlights and shadows. A big sensored camera can record an incredible wide range of contrast. But have no fear, you can still record contrast or dynamic range on this HXR camera too. Flat light can be boring, less engaging. If you are looking into the sun, your contributor will squint, which won't convince any audience either. Instead, use the light from a window or outside use the sun, not from the front, but to one side. This creates interest and an engagement. When I see footage with contrast before I even hear a word of audio, my brain is engaged by the image. We are programmed to respond to shades of light and dark. I have filmed a mother crying her eyes out, standing by a window. One side of her face lit by the sun, the other side of her face in near darkness. The high contrast fitted the story perfectly. And if you think the contrast is too much, I use my faithful reflector to add a little light back into the shadows. Have you ever wondered why some of our favourite stories we read as children involved characters sitting around a bonfire or reading by the light of a candle? And how about if I told you that I rarely use a white card to white balance? It's all because colour affects us profoundly. Warm reddish light attracts, it makes us feel safe. It's the same reason why we like looking at well-tanned faces. Whilst the blue light makes us wary. Think of night scenes in movies, pretty much always blue. And why don't I white balance? Because I want to decide, not the camera, how the viewer reacts to my images by me selecting the colour. We are dialing in the colour temperature now on the HXR camera. What determines where we set it is down to you and your story and the atmosphere you are trying to create for your audience. Recently, in the middle of winter, I've lit a chap in Sweden in his off-grid house, miles from anywhere, with candles that gave his face a wonderful warm glow. But all around him, coming through the windows, was a blue light, which suggested that although he was cosy in his cabin, outside in the wilderness, life was tough. This camera is capable as any other of providing beautiful compositions. Always create a depth to your composition. We can create layers of detail in front and behind our subject. In painting and photography, we use a concept called a vanishing point, a line that moves away from our subject deeper into the background of our frame. The viewer believes this perspective you have created, and this in turn triggers in the viewer's brain a curiosity and interest. So don't film your subject against a boring flat background. So using depth of field, contrast, colour and composition, we start to engage subconsciously with our viewers, who in turn respond to the emotions and atmosphere which we create. It's why we look at a Rembrandt, watch our TV or use the selfie stick. Our viewers feel comfortable in this place. This small censored camera can provide you with a wealth of opportunities to engage your audience with. Harness this camera's potential, use the skills I have outlined, and see what it can do for you.